Shall we get started? All those in favor say aye. Okay, let's get going. So I wanted to share with you, we'll see how much we get through, but I wanted to share some of the lessons that I'd learned. The Precalculus ebook that I'll share with you today is not the first CDF ebook I've done. I don't know how many might be familiar with our calculus book. Okay, so that was our first one out, and because of the calculus was well received and has been well received across the U.S., and we had a lot of requests, is there a precalculus book like this? And of course the answer for a while was no, there's not. But now for 2.5 years, we started this in the summer of 2011, and our precalculus book goes live online November 15th. Pearson is publishing it. All the ebook files just go outside of my math lab, but that's not what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about today was some of the lessons I'd learned from building the book. And maybe there are some folks in here with aspirations of building a CDF book, and maybe I'll have some gems to share. We'll see, okay, or some ideas. So to begin with, let me say a little bit about the workflow. I will talk a bit about the workflow, and maybe it will give you some ideas as to what you need to do. But I found that when I was in writing mode, that mindset is very different from coding mode. And so I separate, for myself mentally, I separate writing from coding. And when I get ready to build a section, every section of the ebook has 3 source files. I have the file in which I write, I have the file in which I code, to keep those separate, and then I have another file for something called a quick quiz. So those are the 3 source files for every section that I compose. I do also want to say something about the style sheets. For those that have used Mathematica for a long time, you know that we have shared style sheets. So you can define a style sheet, you can store it in your system, and then many documents can use that style sheet. However, for what we were looking at in terms of deploying over the web individual ebook files, the notion of a shared style sheet is not effective. Because when an individual file goes out, whoever receives that file doesn't have the shared style sheet unless they've downloaded that. And this was deployed over the web using the CDF plugin. So all the style sheets have to be embedded in the files. As an author, that could be a major, major headache. Because with an embedded style sheet, if 6 months into the process you need to change your style, right, that means you have to update all of the embedded style sheets that you've already put in the book. So I will show you a tool that I had to build for my own sanity. So right now I can update style sheets across all 8 of our ebooks. There's hundreds, probably thousands of files in terms of source files right now. So I have no qualms about changing styles. Let me say something else. The navigation toolbar, you'll see, I'll get into the ebook here pretty soon. The navigation within a section is all built programmatically. I just click buttons and then I have code that takes care of that. So the exposition source file, I grabbed some screenshots of these just to put them in the notebook, but we can go to the live files, and we will go to the live files here pretty soon. But this would be an exposition source where I'm just writing. You can see the effects of a custom style sheet. You know, there's coloring and all that kind of jazz. All right, then the navigation. Every ebook section has a little navigation toolbar in the upper right corner. Clicking on that, and it lists all the tagged information within that section. Figures, definitions, subsections, whatever it is that you've decided to tag, so you don't have to scroll a lot. The code, I mean, what can you say about code? Code is code. So there's all the code that builds the interactive figures, and in Precalculus, in this book, there's about 350 interactive figures. In our calc product, there's 715. So together, between these 2 books, we're getting close to 1,100 interactive figures. All right? So coding. And then I'll say something about the quick quiz. So the quick quiz idea was not, it's not really exposition, but it's not really code either. And there's multiple authors on this project. So the quick quiz, I wanted to make a notebook where somebody can easily write a quiz, and then we can park it in the ebook, and I'll show you that as well. All right, so every section has 3 source files. And then the other thing that I will share with you is every interactive figure in the book lives in its own interactive figure notebook. When we send these up to Pearson, we send the ebook files, But if there's 350 interactive figures in the book, there's also 350 CDF files that go up to the publisher. Each file has just the figure, because we have some faculty who teach with these materials and they don't want to open the ebook in class, they just want to open the figure and teach with the figure. So every figure is available individually as well. All that is created programmatically from those same 3 source files. The other thing I'll say is, in writing the pre-calc book, myself and co-authors, we decided that we wanted to remove the disconnect that sometimes happens between students and their solution manual when they look at answers. So in this particular book, we wrote every last solution and every last answer for all of the exercises in the entire book. So there is no contracted solution writer, they're all author written. And then I'll show you in the source file, we have a problem, we have an exercise, and right below the exercise in our source we write the solution, which is what we want to share in the instructor solution manual or student solution manual. And then right below that, right below the solution, we have another little area where we put our answer in. Okay? Some of the other tidbits, the exercise numbers, which I'll get to here briefly, even though Mathematica has counters, you can use automatic counting in Mathematica. I chose not to use the auto-numbering feature in Mathematica, which turned out to be a really, really good decision a ways into the project. All right, and I'll explain why here. Well, I can explain right now. Here. Let me open a section of the book, and I'll go to section 2.1. So moving down to the exercise sets, if I open up basic skills, so there's a bunch of exercises there. They're all numbered. At the end of the exercise sets are the answers to the odd exercises. So if I click those and I open them up, you'll see question 1, question 3, question 5. All right? So the exercise sets are hard-coded with numbers. I then process those programmatically. I pull out all the exercises, all the solutions and answers. Then I build programmatically the instructor solution manual, the student solution manual, and then I put back into the notebook the odd answers at the end of the section. So let me emphasize here, there's one source for all the solutions and exercises. They're in the source notebook, but all these other things get built programmatically from those. If I'd used the auto-numbering, it would have been a lot more difficult when you're looking at sequences here that are odd, right? So the fact that they were fixed early on turned out to be a really great asset. We were able to move and build the solution manuals. Okay? So moving onwards, I'll share a little bit about the solution manuals. They're built programmatically, and we provide them to Pearson in 2 forms. I provide CDF files, and then we also provide camera-ready PDF files of the solution manuals. All right. I was surprised. I don't know how many have built really long documents, but just for fun, I thought I would take the solution manuals and I would build a PDF document just to see how long the instructor solution manual was. And it was about 1,000 pages in length if you were to print it. My hope is it's not ever printed, but nevertheless it's there. And then just for fun, I thought I would do the same thing with the Precalculus text itself. You know, print out from the table of contents and the preface all the way to the indices. And that came up to about 1,492 pages. But having said that, I have to say, if it was laid out in a desktop publishing package, it would be much smaller, because if you're writing an ebook, what do you do with those figures? You make them big, right? You're going to work with them on screen. You're not printing to a piece of paper. So as an author, I never considered, in the ebook, I never considered paper as being the target, if that makes sense. So I was not constrained in that way. Okay, so the solution manuals, I can pull up the PDFs and show you, but here, I mean, this is really chunky, not nice at all, but you can see Chapter 2, Section 2.1, Question 1, 2, 3. The other thing we did in the solution manual is, in addition to putting the solution in there, we have the exercise itself. So when you open up the solution manual, you don't have to go look in the book. You can see what the exercise is. All right? And remember, yes? Great question. Let me go back to the book. Well, okay, both. You're getting to content questions. I'm just talking about mechanics right now. Don't let me forget that though, okay? Okay. And then, well, I just put a screenshot in there showing you the answers. Okay, moving onwards. Another thing that we created, this is an ebook, hopefully never printed with those 1,500 pieces of paper, but students need something. They need something to write down, so we built a set of exploration and notes to go along with it. And the explorations and notes are composed of material. This would be a definition box that was in our book. So we pull the definition box out, I put it in another Mathematica notebook, and then I highlight keywords, click a button, and a word disappears, and you have a blank frame there for a student to fill in the blanks. That's the easy note-taking. And then you'll find in the exploration and notes, we have explore figure 2.5, and so we have questions, having students explore that figure and respond. Some just do this, what do you see, and other ones moving to a conceptual. So exploration and notes, those are all Mathematica produced as well. And then it was nearing the end of the project, and I realized, well, you got to have an index for a book, right? And so how do you build an index? Well, maybe you want to hire somebody, I don't know. But if you hire somebody to build an index, then what do you have to do as an author? You have to take what they produce and determine, do all these entries make sense? Are they the right ones? All that other kind of stuff. So I decided to write the code and produce the index programmatically for the ebook using Mathematica. All right, so there's 3 indices we have in our book. We have a regular index that just has A, B, C, D, etc. And then the entries, and then there are no pages in this book. So all you reference in the index is what section is that in. And then when you open the section, you have find tools, right? You just search for it. Or you can click on the navigation link. So we also build a second kind of index, which is an interactive figure index. So if you went to that index, all 350 interactive figures are just visible as thumbnails. If you remember what it is that you're looking for, but you don't remember where that is, you can go to the interactive figure index and do a quick scan, find the figure, know the section, then go look it up. All right? And then the last figure, or the last index, is the index of applications. So this lists by topic the applications or word problems, story problems that are in the book. Okay, so all those indices are built programmatically from Mathematica. Where are we at now? Okay, something else. In our calc book, there's 4 authors, Bill Briggs, Lyle Cochran, Bernard Gillette, and myself. In the pre-calc book, there are 2 of us. I'm the lead author on the pre-calc book, and I also work with Bill Briggs and Lyle Cochran and Julianne Sachs. And we no longer send email back and forth to each other about what needs to be done or where we're at and all these sorts of projects. So we do author-to-author communication within our source files. So I can demo that real quick. I click a button, a comment cell goes in, it's date stamped, and the name of who put it in there is there, and we just carry on conversations right in our source. Those are all stripped out programmatically, so I can leave them in there as long as I want, or take them out. So that's the author-to-author communication. Author-to-editor communication. We have editors back in Boston. We would do our manuscripts, send them in. If you've done this kind of work, you're familiar with that. I did not want to go paper. So what happened is our editor in Boston, our developmental editor, was open to learning how to use Mathematica to annotate our notebooks. And so I built her an annotation assistant palette so she could put comments in there, she could mark up text, that kind of stuff, and send it back to me. And so all the process from the authoring and the developmental editor going back and forth is all paper-free. We didn't print it out and mark that up. I will say that I was not quite as fortunate with our copy editors and proofreaders and accuracy checkers. They did actually work on print, and it was printed for them. Okay, and then the other thing I found out is when I send these files into the developmental editor, they go through several iterations, more than one. The first draft doesn't get published. There are subsequent ones. So the editor wants to keep track of what's been changing, right? And I don't know if folks know this, But when you're in a Mathematica notebook and you're editing a cell, there is a record, a date time stamp of when that cell was edited. So I have a button that I click on that produces the editor files, and when she opens them, there are date stamps on every cell. So if she knows the last date she checked the file out, she can just look down for dates that are past that, and she knows what to check out to avoid missing things. That's part of the author-editor communication. And for those who know me, this wouldn't surprise you, but had to put together a few palettes and custom code. So you'll see, you don't see here, but the one palette that's open pretty much all the time is the writing assistant palette. There's some familiarity with that. Okay, if you don't, one of the reasons I really use that a lot, it's my baby. So I built the Writing Assistant palette, the Basic Math Assistant palette, and the Classroom Assistant palette that are shipping in Mathematica. And they got built because I wanted to use Mathematica to write with, and I needed a tool to do that. So the Writing Assistant palette is up regularly. I built an ebook assistant palette that I can share. I'll show you here real quick. I have an ebook build assistant that manages like updating style sheets. There's a button here. I click on it, all the style sheets get updated. And then I had to build a palette for the exploration of notes. You remember the frames, right? Empty frames. Those are created by highlighting content, clicking a button, or inserting a frame of a certain size to give a student a place to work. And then I'll say the indices. I'll show you those real quick. But a palette to insert index entry cells and of other stuff. Okay. Oh, now it's counting down? Is that how it works? Sorry. Hang on, let me, how about I load up a live file? How's that? You guys wouldn't mind, would you? I'll take silence as being a no, we don't mind. So let's go into Precalc, and let's load up section 2.1. And we'll just load up the exposition notebook. And so this is the source for 2.1, section on polynomials. First thing you notice is the orange entries. Those are entries for my index tool. So I go through and I grab those entries and build the indices from those. However, I don't know, in terms of writing, I don't like to see all the orange stuff. So if I load up my ebook assistant palette, I could say, hide all the index entries. Okay, so now, if I scroll around, there's no index entries. They're still there, I just hit them, all right? If I needed to leave a comment, like something in here, I could click on my blue button and I could say, hey, check this out. And then a co-author, she would hit the purple button and say, it's okay. I don't know if you can just see those coming in. That's where we carry on sometimes short, sometimes lengthy conversations. Those all get stripped out at build time for the ones that go out on the web, but we leave them in there as long as we need them as we're writing the manuscript to get over the email sort of things. Creation of content. For instance, if you look there, there's a definition box and you have polynomial on there. If I need a definition box, I come over to my palette and I click I need a definition. The box goes in and I'm ready to write. Okay? Then you might notice if you're in the back, if you're in the front, hopefully so, but if you look above the definition box, there's a little light blue entry. That's the cell tag. So at build time, these entries, I just keep adding cell tags as I'm writing. And when I click a button over here, which I'll go ahead and do, I just click Build Navigation. I'm way over there on the right. What happens is Mathematica is now going through running code, finding all those cell tags, organizing them into a list, and updating the navigation list. Okay, so that's taken care of in the background. It'll be done here shortly. I'll get down to the examples and I'll follow up on your question. By the way, this runs, doing a project like this gives you a great excuse to get a new computer. I mean, when you're producing 8,000 files, the faster the better. So anyway, this will be done, and I'll move down to the examples. This is a longish section. What else did I want to say while I'm here? Let me just point out the number exercises. You'll see a little button on the palette. I'll show you how that works real quick. Moving around, these are my comments. I can bounce from comment to comment, forward or backwards. And I want to say something about these. I have different kinds of comments. I have the comments for author to author. Okay, the comments from author to editor down here, those get stripped out when we build them for Pearson. They stay in place when I build our editor files. So we have two different levels of conversations we maintain within the writing. So I'm going to cruise because I want to get to content sorts of questions. One of the joys of writing a book like this, number one, it's a lot of work, and I don't have to convince anybody of that. But you get to think as a teacher about what makes sense to be teaching. So on exercises, in this particular case, we're talking about the graph of a polynomial function. We're not telling students to go graph them on a graphing calculator. There's a polynomial grapher sitting in their book. They can choose different degrees. The narrative in front of that is referring to the figure. There are examples later on referring to the figure. They go do things there. When they get down to the exercise sets, we can write exercises that say, go back to figure 2.1, do the following, and answer these questions. So that's the interactivity I wanted to allude to. And there are some places where we put interactive figures in the questions. For instance, if I went to, as an example, 6, let me go to 4.3. And let me go to an application problem. So there's a problem down here about pistons. There's a problem about pistons. I always assumed people knew how a piston worked, right? Piston goes up and down, there's uniform circular motion going around. So we have an exercise in here about pistons, but we decided to put an interactive figure in the exercise for a student who has never seen a piston. So there's interactivity at that level. Also, inside of my math lab, which is Pearson's product, they've taken questions from our book and then they have coders that turn them into algorithmically generated exercises that are then computer graded with lots of assistance to go with them. So there's interactivity there as well. All right? So let me finish up. A few tidbits I wanted to give you if you want to tackle something like this, because I think if I tried to put myself in that position right now, it'd be overwhelming, maybe. But I can at least give you some directions. First is, you have to embrace Mathematica as a writing tool. I left the world of LaTeX and Word and MathType and all that kind of stuff years ago simply because I said I'm done with that. I'm going to figure out how to write here. And Mathematica doesn't write in the same way as LaTeX or Word, but I would say to you, you just have to get over that. You learn how it works and you have it work with you. You can make beautiful tables, you can do lots of stuff. And the return that you get is you can build interactive materials, which you can't do in some of those other tools. The other thing I'll say, as I'm looking at the time, every interactive figure, all 1,100 of them in Precalc and Calc, they're all built with manipulate. And the better you know that command, the better off you're going to be to bring some of these things to life. There's another command sitting in Mathematica called create palette. I've made numerous palettes, not just the ones that are in Mathematica, but I need to do something real quick. I'll create a palette, and it saves me a huge amount of time of typing and clicking. Style sheets, as intimidating as they might be, get into them. It's what gives you the creative freedom to give a look and feel to your document and to mess with them. The other thing I have to say is somehow or another you have to figure out how to programmatically manage notebooks. I could not produce 8,000 files without automating this process. And right now there's a bunch of code that takes care of it. When I'm ready to produce files, I run code and all that stuff gets produced and things get stripped out and taken care of. All right? The index, the only reason I was able to build a tool to create an index is I knew how to programmatically manage documents. It's a fascinating tool for that. And the last thing I'll say as I'm heading out of here, before I get kicked out, I would encourage you, I think it's time for a new author mindset. As an author, it is so exciting to sit there and realize you have all the words that we've had for a long time, you have the mathematics that you can typeset, but now you have moving pictures that you can create. They are all storytellers. And the moving pictures are not in the domain of the programmer. It's an authoring skill because there are things that you want to teach through moving pictures. And so I think it's great for a moving a new mindset, and that's sort of what I envision in terms of authors moving into the future. Is it's not just about the words, it's about much more than that. I'm out of here. Thank you. If you see me around, I never tire talking of this stuff, ever.